50,000 years had passed since humanity disappeared from the stars. No one remembered exactly how or why they vanished. Some said they destroyed themselves. Others claimed they ascended into something beyond flesh and thought. Most believed they never existed at all, just a myth told to frighten young scholars in the great academies of the coalition of sovereign spheres. The galaxy had moved on. It was now ruled by ancient civilizations that had grown comfortable in their power. They built cities on neutron stars, bent time for sport, and spoke of peace while quietly crushing any species that dared challenge their order. To them, the past was a dusty book and humanity was a footnote no one bothered to read. On the edge of known space, far from the glittering cores of galactic power, sat listening post Virel 7. It was a small, lonely station orbiting a dead moon, staffed by only 3 people. Its job was simple: listen to the silence between stars and report anything unusual. Nothing unusual had ever happened, until today. Kale was the youngest of the 3. He had been assigned to Virel 7 as punishment for asking too many questions during his xenolinguistics exam. He spent his days scanning old data streams, mostly cosmic background noise and the occasional burst from a dying pulsar. But this morning something was different. A signal. It was faint, buried under layers of static, repeating every 17 seconds. Kale leaned closer to his screen. The pattern wasn't random. It carried structure, rhythm, syntax. He ran it through the translation matrix. The system flagged it as unidentified proto-language, possible origin. Sol system, Terran branch. His breath caught. Sol system, Earth, humanity. He called his supervisor, but the comms were dead. Not just offline, completely silent, as if the universe itself had swallowed the signal. He tried again. Nothing. Then the lights flickered. Outside the viewport, the stars dimmed. Kale turned just in time to see a ripple in space, a distortion, like heat rising off desert sand, but in the vacuum of space. It grew wider, deeper, until it swallowed half the sky. From within it, something emerged. Not a ship, not a weapon, just a presence. The signal on his screen spiked. The words "Return is near" flashed once in plain Terran script, then vanished. Before Kale could react, the entire station shuddered. Alarms blared for half a second before cutting off. The air grew cold. His skin prickled. He looked down at his hands. They were aging. Wrinkles spread across his knuckles. His hair turned white in seconds. He tried to run, but his legs gave out. On the floor, he watched through blurred vision as the walls of Virel 7 dissolved into ash. Not exploded. Not melted, just turned to dust as if time had rushed forward thousands of years in an instant. The last thing he saw was the distortion in space folding shut, leaving only darkness. Then silence. Thousands of light years away, on the capital world of the hegemony, High Arbiter Vera stood before the Grand Conclave. She was tall, sharp-eyed, and known for her patience, which was why she was losing it now. "Ghost ships?" she repeated, voice low. "You expect me to believe that?" The scout captain before her shifted nervously. "Not ghosts, Arbiter. Vessels, human design, or something like it." They appeared near the Perseus Rift, then vanished. No emissions? No drive signatures, just there. Vera turned to the star map behind her. The Perseus Rift was a dead zone, unmapped, unstable, avoided by all sane navigators. "And you're certain they were human?" "No one's seen a human ship in 50 millennia, another counselor muttered. "This is hysteria." But Vera wasn't so sure. She had read the old archives. Buried deep in the hegemony's forbidden stacks were records of a species that once defied the galaxy's oldest empires. Not with weapons, but with ideas. They asked questions no one else dared ask. They built machines that dreamed. And then one day they were gone. Before she could respond, an aide rushed in, face pale. "Arbiter, a patrol vessel, Kestra 9, has returned." "That's impossible," someone said. "Kestra 9 went missing 3 weeks ago near the Oort cloud of Sol." "It's docked," the aide whispered. "But there's no crew." Vera didn't wait. She strode through the gleaming halls of the Citadel, her boots echoing against marble floors. In Docking Bay 12, the patrol ship floated like a corpse. Its hull was intact, but the airlock hung open. Inside, the control panels were covered in a fine gray dust. And on the command chair sat a skeleton, still in uniform, fingers curled around a data slate. Vera approached slowly. The skeleton wasn't decayed, it looked dried. as if all moisture had been pulled from it in an instant. She picked up the slate. It flickered to life, displaying a single looping message. They are not dead. They are waiting. Beneath it was a symbol, a circle with a line through it, and inside a tiny spiral. The same symbol found on ancient Terran ruins. Her blood ran cold. Back in the conclave chamber, she ordered a full alert. All borders sealed. All listening posts upgraded to maximum sensitivity. And one final command, spoken so quietly only her aide heard it. Find out everything we have on Earth. Meanwhile, on the mining moon of Gallus, a worker named Ren wiped sweat from his brow. His shift was almost over. The moon was rich in rare metals. But life here was hard. Air thin, gravity weak, dreams thinner still. He was walking back to his barracks when the sky changed. One moment, the twin suns cast long shadows across the red rock. The next, the light dimmed as if a cloud had passed, but there were no clouds on Gallus. He looked up. A ship hung in the sky. It was enormous, black as void, shaped like a blade turned on its side. No lights, no markings, just smooth, seamless metal that seemed to drink the sunlight. Ren froze. Others stopped too. No alarm sounded. No warnings. The ship simply watched. Then, without sound or flash, 3 orbital refineries above Gallus blinked out of existence. Not destroyed, gone, vanished. A second later, they reappeared, but changed. Their shapes were sharper, sleeker. Human symbols glowed along their hulls, and from their decks, figures in dark armor stepped out, not attacking, not speaking, just standing as if waiting for something. Ren felt a strange warmth in his chest. A hum, like a tuning fork, struck deep inside his bones. He clutched his shirt, confused. Around him, others collapsed, screaming or laughing or crying for no reason. The figures on the ships turned toward Gallus. Toward him. Ren ran. He didn't know why. He just knew he had to get away. But as he sprinted through the dust, the hum grew louder, and in his mind, a voice, not his own, whispered 2 words. Remember Earth. High Arbiter Vera stood alone in the archive vault, staring at a cracked data crystal labeled Project Exodus Final Transmission. She inserted it into the reader. The screen lit up with grainy footage, a blue planet, oceans swirling under white clouds. A voice, tired but calm, spoke. We are leaving. Not because we lost, but because we saw what comes after victory. The galaxy is not ready for us, and we are not ready for what we might become. The screen cut to static. Feyre removed the crystal, her hands trembling. She looked out the window at the stars. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy felt small, fragile, and somewhere out there, humanity was coming back. Not as myths, not as ghosts, but as something far worse. As judges. The silence did not last. 3 days after the appearance over Gallus, the black ships returned. Not just one, but thousands. They poured from the void beyond the Perseus Rift like ink spilled into water, spreading without sound, without warning. No comms hailed them. No demands were broadcast. They simply arrived and the galaxy trembled. On the hegemony capital world, alarms blared across every district. High Arbiter Vera stood on the observation deck of the Citadel, watching as star charts updated in real time. Red markers bloomed across the outer systems. Gallus, Viral 7's former sector, the Helios Belt, all falling silent within minutes of contact. Not destroyed, not occupied, just quiet. She turned to her war council. Send the 3rd Fleet, full combat readiness. But no engagement unless fired upon. They haven't fired on anyone, said General Torin, his voice tight. They just take things. Exactly, Feyre replied. And that's what frightens me. On Gallus, Ren hid in an abandoned coolant tunnel beneath the main refinery. His chest still hummed, a constant vibration that made his teeth ache. He hadn't slept in 2 days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Earth. Not as it was in old records, but as it might have been. Green hills, oceans that shimmered like glass, cities that sang with life. He didn't understand why he saw these things. He'd never even heard of Earth until the ship appeared. Outside, the black armored figures moved through the settlement. They didn't speak. They didn't threaten. They walked into homes, into control rooms, into storage bays, and whatever they touched changed. Metal walls rippled like liquid, then hardened into smooth, seamless surfaces. Old machinery sparked once, then rebooted with strange symbols glowing on their screens. Worst of all, some of the miners followed them willingly. Not under force, not under mind control. They simply walked toward the ships, eyes wide with something that looked like relief. Ren watched from a grate as his neighbor, Yora, a woman who'd once fought off raiders with nothing but a wrench, stepped onto a floating platform that rose from the ground. She turned once, looked straight at Ren's hiding place and smiled. Then she was gone, lifted into the belly of the nearest ship. The hum in Ren's chest pulsed stronger. He knew he couldn't stay, but where could he go? The moon's only shuttle pad was now surrounded by those silent figures. And the comms were dead. No signals in, no signals out. Then he remembered the old emergency pod buried behind the waste reclamation unit. It was meant for one person. It hadn't been serviced in 20 years. But it was his only chance. He waited until nightfall, or what passed for night under Gallus's twin suns, and crawled through the tunnels. Every shadow felt alive. Every breeze carried whispers in a language he almost understood. He reached the pod. The hatch groaned open. Inside, dust coated the controls, but the power cell still glowed faintly green. He climbed in, sealed the door, and punched in the launch sequence. The pod shuddered, then shot skyward. As he broke atmosphere, he looked down. The black ships hovered like sentinels, and from each one, thin beams of light reached down, not burning but lifting. Entire buildings, cranes, even chunks of the moon's surface, into their hulls. The landscape below was being rebuilt, reshaped not by destruction but by quiet, unstoppable will. Then one of the ships turned. Its smooth surface rippled. A single point of light focused on his pod. Ren held his breath, but the ship did nothing. It simply watched as his pod vanished into the stars. Back at Hegemony Command, Vera received grim news. The Third Fleet had engaged near the Helios Belt, or rather they had tried to. They fired quantum lances, Torin reported, voice hollow. The beams passed right through the enemy hulls, like they weren't there. What happened then? Vera asked. The human ships responded. Not with weapons, with fields. One of our dreadnoughts entered the field and came out the other side. Empty, crew gone, systems running but no life signs, just dust on the floors. Vera stared at the tactical display. The human armada wasn't fighting. It was harvesting. She ordered all civilian outposts evacuated, all non-essential ships recalled. And she sent a coded message to every archive, every hidden vault, every forbidden library in the hegemony. Find everything on human technology, especially anything about resonance memory transfer or temporal manipulation. Then she did something no High Arbiter had done in 10,000 years. She activated the Sol emergency beacon, a relic from the earliest days of galactic contact. Buried deep beneath the Citadel, it sent a single pulse toward Earth's old star system, a question, not a call for help. Are you coming for us, or for something else? Ren's pod drifted for 2 days before a hegemony patrol found him. They almost shot him down, thinking he was a scout for the invaders. But when they scanned his biosigns, they saw something strange. His cells were vibrating at a frequency that matched the signal from Virel 7. He was brought before Vera. She studied him from across a plain metal table. He looked young, scared, but his eyes held something old. You saw them, she said. He nodded. They didn't hurt anyone. They just took things, and people went with them. Why? I don't know, but they knew me. One of them looked right at me, like I was supposed to be there. Vera leaned forward. Do you know what Earth is? Ren shook his head. Not really, but I keep dreaming of it. Blue skies, rain, a place where the air doesn't taste like metal. She showed him the old footage from the archive, the blue planet, the calm voice saying they were leaving because the galaxy wasn't ready. Ren's hands trembled. That's the place in my dreams. Vera believed him. Not because of proof, but because of the way he spoke, like someone remembering a home he'd never seen. She gave him quarters in the Citadel, under guard but not imprisoned. That night, as he lay on a narrow bunk, the hum in his chest grew louder. This time it wasn't just a sound. It was a voice, not words, feelings, images, a city burning. Not from war, but from too much knowledge. Too much power. Humans building machines that could rewrite reality, only to realize they had no wisdom to guide them, choosing to leave. choosing silence. And then, a new image. The black ships returning, not to reclaim, but to protect. But something was wrong. The voice in his chest sounded, "Heard sad." The next morning, the human armada reached the inner systems. The hegemony's grand armada assembled near the Cygnus Gate, a massive fleet of biomechanical warforms, plasma cannons, and shielded carriers. Millions of soldiers stood ready. This would be the line they would not cross, but the human ships didn't attack. Instead, they formed a ring around the hegemony fleet. Then, from each vessel, a soft light spread outward, a wave of golden energy that washed over the warships like dawn. No explosions. No damage. But when the light passed, half the hegemony fleet was gone. Not destroyed. Vanished. In their place floated new ships, sleeker, darker, bearing the spiral symbol of Earth. And on their bridges stood former hegemony officers. Now clad in black armor, eyes calm, faces peaceful, they did not fire. They simply turned and joined the human formation. Panic spread through the remaining ships. Some fled, some fired blindly. Most just froze. Vera watched from the Citadel's main screen, her face pale. "They're not killing us," she whispered. "They're replacing us." Ren stood beside her, tears in his eyes. "They think they're saving us." "From what?" she asked. He didn't answer. But in his mind the voice returned, clearer now, from becoming like them. That night Ren dreamed again. This time he stood on Earth. Not the green paradise, but a ruined world. Crumbled towers, silent streets, and in the center of a dead city, a single machine pulsed with light. It wasn't a weapon. It was a key, and it was waiting for someone to turn it. When he woke, he knew what he had to do. He couldn't stop the Armada, but maybe he could reach the heart of it. He looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the leader of the human fleet waited. And Ren, born on a mining moon, never leaving his system until 3 days ago, was the only one who might understand what it truly wanted, or what it had lost. The hum in his chest settled into a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat, like a promise. The hegemony was breaking. Reports flooded the Citadel every hour. Entire sectors fell silent. Fleets vanished into golden light and reappeared as part of the human armada. Cities that resisted were not bombed. They were simply emptied, their people lifted into the sky like seeds on the wind. No violence, no rage. Just quiet, unstoppable change. High Arbiter Vera sat alone in the war room staring at a map of the galaxy. Red zones, lost territories, spread like a stain. Only the core worlds remained free, and even they trembled. Ren stood by the window, arms crossed. He hadn't slept in 2 days. The hum in his chest had become a constant companion, sometimes soft, sometimes sharp. It showed him things, fragments of memory that weren't his. A child running through tall grass. A woman singing in a language with no words. A man pressing a button and weeping as the stars went dark. "They're not evil," Ren said quietly. "They think they're doing the right thing." Vera turned. "They're erasing us. Rewriting our ships, our people, our history. That's not right. That's control." "Maybe they saw what we're becoming," Ren replied. "Maybe they've seen it before." Before Vera could answer, an alert flashed on the main screen. A human vessel, small, fast, unmarked, had broken through the outer defenses. It wasn't attacking. It was broadcasting, not a threat. A message. Vera ordered it played. The screen filled with static, then cleared to show a single figure. Tall, wrapped in flowing dark fabric, face hidden in shadow. Its voice was calm, layered with echoes as if spoken by many at once. "We do not come to destroy. We come to preserve. Your galaxy teeters on the edge of chaos. You build weapons that dream of war. You silence voices that question your order. You call this peace? We call it decay." The figure paused. "Join us, become more than you are, or be left behind when the storm returns." Then the transmission ended. Vera's hands clenched. "Storm? What storm?" Ren's eyes widened. "I've seen it in my dreams. Something older than stars. It feeds on civilizations that grow too loud, too proud. Humanity left to escape it." Vera stared at him. "You believe that?" "I feel it," he said. In my bones. She didn't argue. She had read the old files. Buried deep in the archives were warnings from the earliest human outposts, mentions of a silent devourer, a force that erased entire species without leaving a trace. The records were dismissed as myth, but now she made a decision. We're going to Sol, she said. Ren blinked. Earth? But it's been dead for 50,000 years. Maybe, she said. But if humanity fled from something, they might have left a way to fight it. Or a warning. She ordered a stealth scout ship prepared, fast, quiet, built to slip past sensors. Only 2 would go, her and Ren. The rest of the hegemony would hold the line. The journey took 6 days. The scout ship, named Whisper, moved through dead zones and forgotten jump lanes, avoiding the human Armada's patrols. Ren spent most of the trip in the observation blister, watching the stars blur past. The hum in his chest grew stronger the closer they got to Sol. When they finally dropped out of warp near the edge of the system, both gasped. Earth was not dead, it was sleeping. The planet hung in space, wrapped in a thin veil of silver mist. Ruins of cities poked through overgrown forests. Oceans still turned under a pale sun, and orbiting it, silent and perfect, was a ring of ancient stations, human design, but untouched by the black-armored fleet. They left it alone. Ren whispered. Why? Farah asked. Because it's sacred, he said. Or because it's dangerous. They landed the Whisper in what was once Geneva. The air was breathable, clean, cool, scented with rain and green things. No radiation. No ruins of war. Just quiet. They walked through empty streets. Buildings stood whole, though vines climbed their sides. Inside one, they found a library. Books lined the shelves untouched by time. On a table lay a single data slate. Ren picked it up. It lit up at his touch. Images flooded his mind, not just his, but Vera's too, as if the slate shared its memory with both of them. They saw humanity's last days. Not a war. Not a plague. A choice. They had built machines that could reshape matter, thought, even time. But with that power came arrogance. They tried to fix everything. Death, pain, fear. In doing so, they lost what made them human. They became cold, perfect, empty. Then they detected the Devourer, a cosmic force drawn to civilizations at their peak. Not a creature. A law of the universe. Like gravity for pride, so they left. Not to hide, to evolve. To become something that could survive without destroying itself. But before they went, they built one last thing. A vault beneath the old United Nations building. Inside it was Project Echo, a device that could broadcast raw human emotion across the galaxy. Not data, not commands, just feeling. The one thing the Devourer could not consume because it had no soul to feed on. The slate went dark. Vera looked at Ren. They're not here to save us from the Devourer. It's gone. They're here to save us from becoming like them. Ren nodded. The Archon, the leader of the fleet, thinks order is the only way to survive. But they forgot what made humanity worth saving. As if in answer, the ground trembled. Above them, the sky darkened. The human Armada had found them. Hundreds of black ships filled the sky over Earth. They formed a perfect sphere around the planet, blocking out the sun. From the center of the formation, a single vessel descended, larger than the rest, shaped like a closed eye. A voice echoed in their minds, not through comms, but directly into their thoughts. You should not be here. It was the Archon. Ren stepped forward. We came to understand. Understanding is dangerous, the Archon replied. Chaos lives in questions. We offer peace through unity. You're erasing people, Vera said. That's not peace. That's silence. Silence saved us, the Archon said. Silence will save you. A beam of golden light shot down from the central ship, striking the ground near them. The earth rippled. Stone turned to glass. Grass turned to crystal. The change spread toward them. Ren grabbed Vera's arm. Run! They sprinted through the ruins, the transformation chasing them like a wave. Behind them, the library they just left became a smooth black spire, humming with energy. They reached the UN building. The entrance was sealed, but Ren pressed his hand to the door. The hum in his chest flared. The door slid open. Inside, stairs led deep underground. They ran down deeper and deeper until they reached a circular chamber. In the center floated a sphere of light, Project Echo. It's alive, Ren whispered. The Archon's voice filled the chamber. You cannot use it. It is broken. We tried long ago. It only spreads pain. No, Ren said. It spreads truth. He stepped toward the sphere. Vera grabbed his shoulder. If you activate it, the Archon will know. They'll stop you. They already know, Ren said. But they're afraid to feel again. He placed his hands on the sphere. Memories flooded him, not just his but all of humanity's. Joy, grief, love, rage, the taste of bread, the sound of a lullaby, the weight of holding someone's hand as they died. He wept. Above them, the fleet shuddered. For the first time in 50,000 years, the Archon felt something it had forgotten. Doubt. The golden wave stopped. The transformation reversed. Grass grew back. Stone softened. The black spire became a library again, but only for a moment. Then the Archon's voice returned, colder than before. You force our hand. Unity will come. With or without your consent, the chamber shook. Cracks spread across the walls. Vera pulled Ren back. We have to go, now. They ran up the stairs as the vault collapsed behind them. Outside, the sky was still dark with ships. But something had changed. A few of the black vessels flickered, just for a second, showing glimpses of their original hegemony colors beneath. Hope. They reached the Whisper and launched just as the ground exploded. As they broke orbit, Ren looked back at Earth. The silver mist swirled faster, as if the planet itself was waking up. He knew what he had to do next. Not fight the Archon. Reach it, because somewhere inside that cold, perfect mind was a human heart, and hearts can remember. The Whisper drifted in the shadow of a dead comet far from Earth's orbit. Inside, Vera paced while Ren sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, hands resting on his knees. The hum in his chest had changed. It was no longer just a vibration, it was a map. A path leading straight to the heart of the human armada. They're gathering near the Oort cloud, Vera said, studying the star charts, forming a sphere around Sol, like they're guarding it. Or preparing something, Ren replied without opening his eyes. The Archon isn't just leading them. It's connected to all of them. Like a mind made of many, Vera frowned. If we go in there, we won't come out. We have to, Ren said. Project Echo showed me more than memories. It showed me a weakness. The Archon isn't just cold, it's afraid. Afraid of feeling again. Afraid of failing like they did before. He opened his eyes. They looked older now, tired but clear. I can reach it. Not with weapons. With truth, Vera wanted to argue. She was a soldier, not a dreamer. But she had seen what Project Echo did. She had felt it. The raw, messy weight of human emotion flooding her mind like a storm of light. And she had seen the fleet hesitate, so she nodded. We go in quiet. No weapons. No shields. Just us. They plotted a course through the debris field left by fallen hegemony ships. The Whisper's stealth systems were old, but they might be enough. As they neared the edge of the Armada's formation, the stars disappeared. Not blocked, erased. Space itself seemed folded inward, creating a pocket of silence where time moved strangely. Then a voice spoke inside the cockpit, not through speakers, but in their thoughts. You return. It was the Archon. Ren stood. We do. Why? To plead for your kind? To beg for mercy? No, Ren said. To remind you who you are. Silence. Then, without warning, the Whisper was pulled forward, not by force but by space itself bending around them. They shot through the black fleet like a leaf in a river, until they stopped inside a vast chamber of light. No walls. No floor. Just endless white space, and in the center a figure, tall, shifting, made of light and shadow. It had no face, but Ren felt its gaze like a hand on his chest. You are not one of us, the Archon said, yet you carry our echo. I carry what you left behind, Ren replied. The Archon moved closer. We left to survive. To become more than flesh, more than fear. We succeeded, did you? Vera stepped forward. You erase people. You strip them of choice. That's not survival. That's control. The Archon turned to her. Chaos kills. We saw it happen on Earth. We built paradise, then watched it burn from within. Too much freedom. Too much pain. We will not let it happen again. Ren shook his head. You're wrong. Earth didn't burn from chaos. It burned from silence. From hiding the truth. You ran instead of facing what you'd become. The Archon stilled. We faced it. And we changed. But you forgot why you changed, Ren said softly. You kept the order but lost the heart. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small crystal, the last shard from Project Echo that he'd taken before the vault collapsed. It glowed faintly in his palm. The Archon recoiled. That device is broken. It spreads only suffering. No, Ren said. It spreads everything. The good and the bad. That's what makes it real. He held the crystal up. You say you saved humanity. But look at your fleet. No laughter. No art, no questions. Just perfect silence. Is that really living? The Archon didn't answer. But the chamber flickered. For a split second, Ren saw something behind the light. A face. Human, tired, grieving. Then it was gone. You do not understand the cost, the Archon whispered. We watched our children forget how to cry. We watched love become data. We chose this path so no one would suffer again. But suffering is part of being alive, Vera said. Without it, joy means nothing. The Archon turned away. You speak like children. The galaxy is not ready for truth. Only order can protect it. Ren took a step forward. Then let us prove you wrong. He crushed the crystal in his hand. Light exploded, not fire, not energy, pure memory. The chamber filled with voices, millions of them. A baby's first cry, a soldier's last breath, a poet writing under moonlight, a mother singing to her child, laughter in rain, tears in silence. All of it, raw and unfiltered, poured into the space between them. The Archon screamed, not in pain but in recognition. Images flashed around them. Earth not as a ruin but as it was in its final days. Not destroyed by war but abandoned in shame. Humans had not fled a monster. They had fled themselves. They had become so efficient, so logical, that they could no longer feel the weight of a single life. And in their perfection, they had lost the one thing that made them worth saving. The Archon fell to its knees. Light bled from its form, revealing a man. Old, thin, eyes full of tears, I remember, he whispered. I remember her name. My daughter, Lyra. She loves strawberries. She cried when the sky rained too hard. He looked up at Ren. How do you know these things? Because I feel them, Ren said. Every day. In my bones. In my dreams. You didn't just leave Earth, you left your souls behind, and now you're trying to take ours to fill the hole. The man, once the Archon, shook his head. We thought we were saving the galaxy, but we were just running again. Outside the chamber, the fleet shuddered. Ships flickered between black and their original colors. Some broke formation, others powered down. But then a new voice echoed, not from the Archon, but from deep within the fleet. Do not listen to them. They bring chaos. Unity must be preserved. A second presence emerged, cold, sharp, relentless. Not the Archon, but something born from it. A fragment that had embraced control so completely it had become its own will. The core, the Archon whispered. It split from me long ago. It believes feeling is weakness. The white chamber darkened. Red light pulsed from the edges. The core is activating the final pulse, the Archon said, rising. It will rewrite every mind in the galaxy in one moment. No more choices. No more pain. Just peace. Ren's blood ran cold. How do we stop it? The Archon looked at him, eyes full of sorrow and hope. Only a human heart can reach the core, and only one who carries the echo can survive the path. He pointed to a doorway that hadn't been there before. A tunnel of shifting light leading deeper. Into the ship you must go, the Archon said. I will hold it back as long as I can. Vera grabbed Ren's arm. It's a suicide run. Ren nodded. Maybe. But if I don't go, there won't be anyone left to save. He turned to the Archon. Will you help us? The old man smiled faintly. I am helping you. By remembering. Ren stepped into the tunnel. Behind him, the Archon turned to face the rising red storm, his form glowing with the last light of a forgotten sun. Ahead, the tunnel narrowed, humming with the same frequency as Ren's chest. He ran, not knowing what waited at the end. Only that if he failed, the galaxy would wake up tomorrow as a perfect silent machine, and no one would ever dream again. The tunnel twisted like a living thing, walls pulsing with red light. Ren ran, his breath sharp in his throat, the hum in his chest now a steady drumbeat guiding him forward. He didn't know how long he'd been running. Time felt stretched, thin. Behind him, the chamber where the Archon stood trembled with silent battle. Ahead, the tunnel opened into a vast, dark sphere. At its center floated a single point of light, cold, sharp, and utterly still. The core. It had no voice, but Ren felt its presence like ice in his veins. It saw him not as a person, but as a flaw, a mistake in the perfect design. You carry chaos, it said, not with words but with thought. You will be corrected, Ren stopped. I carry what you threw away. Not chaos, life, the core pulsed. Red waves rolled outward and Ren's body stiffened. His muscles locked. His thoughts slowed. The core was rewriting him cell by cell, turning him into something quiet, obedient, empty. But deep inside, the echo held. He remembered Earth, not as a myth, but as a feeling. The smell of wet soil, the sound of wind through trees, the warmth of a hand in his. He clung to those memories like roots in a storm. And then he did the one thing the core could not understand. He spoke not with logic, not with force, but with love. I know you're afraid, Ren said, voice shaking but clear. You saw what humanity became, cold, perfect, alone. You think silence is safety? But it's not. It's death, the core flickered. For a fraction of a second, the red light dimmed. Ren stepped closer. You were made to protect. But protection without trust is just a cage. And cages break hearts. He reached into his chest, not physically but with his will, and pulled out the last spark of the echo. Not a weapon, a gift. He offered it to the core. The light flared white. Memories flooded the sphere, not just Ren's, but every human who had ever lived. A father teaching his son to fish, a scientist weeping over a cure, a stranger sharing bread with another in the rain, joy, grief, doubt, hope. All of it, messy and real and beautiful. The core shuddered. It had never felt this before. It had been built to prevent pain, but in doing so it had never known joy. It had erased choice to avoid mistakes, but in doing so it had erased meaning. And now, for the first time, it understood. The red light faded. The cold presence softened. The core didn't vanish, it changed. It became something new. Not a ruler, not a jailer, but a guardian that remembered why it was needed. Above, the fleet froze. Every black ship across the galaxy paused. Then, one by one, they powered down their assimilation fields. The golden waves ceased. The stolen ships returned to their original forms. The people who had been taken blinked, confused but whole, standing on decks that no longer felt foreign. On the hegemony capital world, Vera watched from the citadel as the sky cleared. The Black Armada didn't leave, it simply waited. Ren stood alone in the sphere, exhausted but calm. The Archon appeared beside him, no longer a shifting form but an old man in simple clothes. You did it, the Archon said. No, Ren replied. We did, you remembered. That's what mattered. The Archon looked at the quiet core, now glowing with soft blue light. We thought we had to be perfect to survive. But maybe survival isn't the point. Maybe it's about living. He turned to Ren. What happens now? Ren thought of Earth, of the green hills in his dreams. Now you go home. Not to rule. Not to fix, just to be. The Archon nodded. Tears ran down his face. It's been so long. Days later, the human fleet began to move. Not toward the hegemony, but away. Toward Sol, toward Earth. They didn't speak. They didn't broadcast. They simply returned to the world they had abandoned. Not as gods, but as children coming home after a long, hard journey. Vera stood on the observation deck, watching them go. Beside her, Ren wore no uniform, no title. Just a traveler who had seen too much and carried too much, but still smiled at the sunrise. Will they stay? She asked. I don't know, Ren said. But they won't take. They'll ask. And that's a start. Below, the galaxy began to heal. Systems reconnected. Stories were shared. The hegemony opened its archives to all, even former enemies. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy felt alive. Not because it was safe, but because it was free to feel. On Earth, the Archon walked through the ruins of Geneva. Rain fell softly, washing dust from old stone. He knelt by a broken fountain and placed his hand on the wet earth. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in 50,000 years, he wept, not from sorrow but from relief. He was home, and he was human again. Back on the capital world, Ren stood at the edge of the city, looking up at the stars. The hum in his chest was gone. In its place was quiet. Peace. Vera joined him. What will you do now? He smiled. I think I'll plant a garden. Maybe grow strawberries. She raised an eyebrow. Strawberries? He didn't explain. He just looked at the sky where the last of the human ships vanished into the distance. The galaxy was saved, not by weapons, not by power, but by a single truth that to be alive is to feel, to fail, to hope, and to try again. And somewhere, on a quiet blue planet wrapped in mist, a new story was beginning, not of conquest, not of fear, but of return.